So I pulled a red one, and the topic was God.
Wow. Oh, God.
Yeah, God.
Oh, my God.
So, of course, I would pull this topic because I'm obsessed with God. Like, it comes down to even my script writing, and I realize it. I don't think people think about God as much as I think about God.
Okay.
Like, and it comes out very much in conversation, and I think that came from the way I was raised. You know, I was raised in a very, very, very Christian household, very traditional Hispanic, Pentecostal church. If anyone knows anything about Pentecostals, we believe in, like, the fruit of the Spirit and, like, having the gifts of like, healing and tongues and all of this stuff.
Oh, wow.
So it was colorful, and we were Latin, of course, so we were the you know, the stereotypical black gospel church.
Okay.
We were that, but for Hispanics.
Oh.
Like, everybody shoes off, clapping around, happy as hell.
Wow,
like,
did not
yeah.
know that existed.
Yeah, that exists. That's a thing.
Wow.
And I grew up in that, and I grew up very, very centered on the idea that, you know, God's with you, God hears you, God helps you, you're important to God, that.
So, like, who is God for you? Or
So-
what is God for you?
God was very different for me when I was in that
Okay.
than what God is for me now.
Oh, interesting. All right.
Yeah. God back then was the... Whoa, we're gonna get so deep. God back then was the father I didn't have.
Okay.
Like, it was the protective, like, good-natured, like... And this is not to talk... if I have to do a disclaimer for my father, then that'll be for every episode, because I'm pretty sure the daddy issues come too. I mean, I think we all have the mommy issues and the daddy issues.
Yeah.
And, no, I felt a lot of fear with my father growing up, so God was the opposite of that. God was like, I'm not scared of God. Like, he's big and powerful, and he did all that stuff in fucking, you know, the First Testament. What is it? The Old Testament. Not the First Testament. That's stupid.
You sure you like church?
Right? And I went to church.
Say it again.
So, no, in the Old Testament, you know, he did some crazy shit in that one, but he's good, and he's, you know, I grew up in that. My relationship with God now is very open. It is that of an idea, because I had a time where I walked away from the idea of God because I was very alone. And when I felt I needed God the most, he was gone. And I had always read all the Bible stories about, like, you know, when, you know, everything is horrible for you and at your weakest and your darkest, if you still have faith in God, God will show up.
Yeah.
And I got there many times. And there were many times that God didn't feel like he showed up. So that sucked for me. And it sucked for me in a very childlike way. Like, I really believed.
Yeah.
You know? And so when nothing showed up, it was like, what do I make this? What do I make out of this? So I had to change the way I thought about God, because I feel like there is something out there, something perpetual, something that drives everything, a purpose to everything. I don't subscribe, prescription medication. I don't subscribe to the idea that there is no God. I think that there is a giant amount of energy and power in the universe, and that it has something, and we're connected to it in some way. So that's God to me, and I do think that there is a maybe a morality to it, because something in the soul feels good when something morally just happens, and I think that connects to whatever that God is, or that energy is. But I don't know about right and wrong. I know about, like, moral standings of being a human being that haven't been defined yet.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I guess I was raised Catholic. I went to a Catholic school all my life. I was even, how do you call colitos? I was an altar girl. Yeah, I learned all of the things. I was very into it. But it was very much like because people told me to do it. Like, I was not there because I wanted. It was just because that's how my world around me just told me to be. I obviously started to distance myself from it because I never was really interested. I never really connected to it, like, genuinely. Everything felt very forced, very acted, very faked from my part, but I was there and I was doing it. We would go from religion class to science class, and they would tell us to completely things. in religion class. In religion class, they would tell us like the story of how the world was created by God and Adam and Eve and the 10 days and all these things of the creation. And then the very next hour in science class, they were like, oh, the Big Bang Theory and we come from the apes. And
7
it was
days.
like 7 days. I'm sorry, I forgot. But yeah, so it was at that point that I was like, wait, what the hell is going on? You guys are telling me two different completely things about the same. Like that's when I started questioning more about it, being more like, wait, like what? And then also another thing is like I never felt comfortable confessing my sins to a priest.
Yeah.
I was always like, I don't understand, like, because they keep telling me that I can have like
exactly
the
what
connection with God is between him and me, and it's personal, and it's this thing between us, sacred and very holy and very like between him and me, and he always sees me and always listens to me. So why do I have to talk to this dude
absolutely
about my sins if I can just tell him myself?
which is
It's like having someone's direct phone number, but you still like to use this random old dude that hears everyone's bullshit all the time.
Yeah.
That like is probably gonna judge you.
Exactly.
Like, and tell you and give you homework.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck
like,
is the point?
you need to pray these many. And I was
like it
I
adds such a
don't-
mentality
this
of
makes no
debt.
sense.
It
Yeah.
adds such a mentality of guilt, of like your sins and the things you
And then
do have
it
a
was-
price.
Dude, it was
It's so
always this
bad.
thing of like, you can't confess if you're not truly sorry for your sins. You have to be truly sorry. And I was not
the
truly
way-
sorry.
that's-
I was like, I'm not sorry that I lied to my mom. I had to lie to my mom so I could like do this thing or whatever. You know, like there was stuff that did not make sense that I was like not okay with. So I took
Absolutely.
the good and I left what I didn't agree with. Yeah. It's a whole thing.
Yeah. Whole thing. Next
Yeah.
subject, I
Next
think.
subject. We
Let's
talked about this
chink. We gotta
forever.
keep going.
Here we go. Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Ha!
What is it?
Sex.
Yummy. Perfect way to end it with a come on.
Okay, let's talk about sex.
All
Okay.
right. Opinions on sex, Ali.
Sex. Okay, so
Hispanic fucking culture, bro. Everyone's like, oh, what's our thing? What's our to
yeah,
be
that
sexy,
we're sexy
bitch.
and caliente.
To be sexy, like salsa, and they're spicy,
Yeah,
and all
yeah.
this bullshit. And we have such a fucking vice grip on our daughters' pussies.
Yes.
Like,
Oh
why?
my God.
Why? Why is
There's
there
a
so
whole,
much like
so
virginity
much,
mongering?
Yeah, so much value on staying a virgin until marriage, and so much value on staying pure for your man. Is this whole thing? So speaking about sex, it's kind of like hard for me. I can't, like, for example, the other day it's the GABS put on, because of research, she was she put on a video about masturbation, and it was very explicit and graphic, and it was fine. It was a very fine video, but I was just very uncomfortable watching it there with GABS next to me and like a vagina picture in the
and where to fold the labia to move
Yeah.
the proper sex
yeah,
organ
and
in
the clitoris and blah blah. Even though if I don't want it to be awkward, it's still awkward because all my life it's been told to me that sex is something secret and awkward and you need to not talk about it and la la la, and because you're a lady, it's just all of these things, and it's like
what it means to be a lady in Hispanic culture.
yeah, so God.